Hello, Weathersfield Police, with names with other police departments. By the way, forgiveness is for this because they already confessed it. And other police departments, families, other agencies like the FBI, since founding too, black pupils. See, we have black pupils' rights of eyes. This was left out with how that breaching method assigned that to communicate other. Then nature communicates with it. So nature shows us that too. So nature shows us the difference between positives and as criminal insidiousness nature too, or negatives as criminal insidiousness nature. In other words, and with Boolean logic, and with the nature debate contains quality aspects, nature styles of fact-cheating nature that are criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. This breaching method came from before modern religions messengers were even born. So modern day countries. So before colonial names, individually grouped and together, had roles with an entrenched slavery method. North and South colonies, Northern and Southern colonies, more than 13. And everyone was enslaved by it and roles with it. And and including with the difference of it, those roles. Including, in other words, North and South sickly distinctly too, per function by how sickly non-distinctly left out by people, speaking for practicality anyway. Criminal insidious nature or positives. So in other words, in front of Congress, certain type of victim hyper victim is effectively named a victim predator / hyper predator. And this is at countries A through Z, suits and ties, counters, and exceptions as collusion. Because the whole array is maintenance to styles of qualities of fact-cheating nature, aspects of fact-cheating nature, as criminal insidiousness / hyper-criminal insidiousness. I am not a lawyer. Excuse me. So switching names and planting fake motivations is involved with locations, areas, and states that never went away as what caused negative alienation progressions, acts, and natures, and roles with it. So all those names and roles also cause negative alienation progressions, acts, and nature. Hyper additionally, because they were also roles with the first thing, principal causing it. Those crazy, crazy, crazy laws that have been entrenched. Northern colonies and southern colonies. America's founders weren't even born. Before America's founders were even born, northern colonies, southern colonies had already designed the houses, the design of suburban houses and streets and plans with relative to countries individually grouped and together with companies and value nature systems and policing of everything like that, where they would have crazy laws where if anyone was found out to be speaking about building outside of those monitored conversations about it, this is what I learned in notes at Central Connecticut State University. They would hurt and kill those people and everyone around them if they were even found out to be speaking about it. And then our founders were born. And I read that James Madison, we were supposed to say that our founders wanted us to say that them behind James Madison and his plan then went out and found George Washington and got him to help with the plan, where there was no means at all. But they knew that if they could force for a little while England to be in trouble by the breaching method, at the same time as everyone over here that way they had to counter extort the force to be counter. It wasn't just our founders and George Washington. Then they had to counter extort at 13 locations. in more than 13 colonies to make everyone having messed with the crazy system entrenched syntactically. In other words, it was designed to have people sense for the breaching method through our own, because it designed them having to sense for themselves for all kinds of hyper additional reasons. Also designed to screen the breaching method, which assigned names A through Z, differences A through Z. Therefore, names A through Z, used as systems tactical ulterior from that which they are being used by nature. See, nature communicates with us by having other species that are not even the same species as us. And they also have this trinity, this physically manifest trinity: individual, grouped difference /S, in species body. And they have two eyes, for example. Even the insects have quality aspects of nature. A shared communication is capable of being. But none are seeing, none discern. So you guys have nature's a debate offensively, because you are being shown the formal identities of law. They confess their methods. I forgot the phrase they use. In other words, sources and methods. Their sources and methods are corrupt. People say this breaching method could get people to need to say and to want to say, even though they don't want to say and do things at locations, or they're just going to increasingly fake it too, to hide live progressions, to keep things going before cases, to hide how they kept things going before criminal and civil cases. The news at the same time, the names at the courts, putting fake things in databases, switching names, forging names, putting fake sequence shifts, illusions as collusion, /S again at the same time with news names. Names on often next to all natures of crime scenes. The same way originally and still. All kinds of crime scenes are going to be when you have those crazy laws. What were witch trials about? Even if they were made up there about that torture, extortion, slavery method. Manifest as an identity theft, fraud, slander method against everyone sickly non-distinctly. And that is also left out because everyone also leaves out how sickly non-distinctly. I mean, how sickly distinctly. See, that breaching method is set up black, your pigment to be hurt more. And then they set up exceptions too. And then they showed them while they're debating or fighting about what to do with it, how to defend those exceptions the way it needed it. It showed the most sophisticated identities of the law, how to read the law. So this force tricked her, persuaded people to summarize the law as, oh, nobody is above the law. That's not a real statute. They're putting faked audio and video transcripts in legal cases since founding. And they're putting their delusions, including with doctors. I'm not even a doctor, but there are doctors like named Leahy. That a whole bunch of ones that work at Hartford Hospital who have roles with various natures of drugs and medicines, crimes with kids and with elderly homeless and veteran homeless people and foreign and domestic families, and with judges and prosecutors speaking fake things into databases with them, in backgrounds pretending they had conversations with me since I was a kid, too, with the news, because they're needing to hide live progressions. These are also Clinton people involved with Russians and pretending to be against it. Some ways it's the Russians that force them. Some ways it's them to force the Russians. The difference of that too. The same ones involved with Saudi. Same ones involved with the campuses. Still. So they're planting evidences at every campus. The people, the security there is showing they need to hide life progressions from years before, all along roads and routes. Now, one computes vaccines. I teach us things belong. So you have that with wars, and when they speak about solutions, they speak about economies. They leave out how the economy was and its values. In other words, see the suits and ties counter exception. See pantheism. Here, pantheism's name again. / hyperpantheism. Because there's that part that can only be defended by an individual of everything at once. The finite, the order of the finite is forbid. We have, in other words, and the significance of how they've had collusion / S so long. The intelligence is not just intelligence legitimately with criminal enterprises next to Central Connecticut State University and next to Trinity College in Quinnipiac University, Yukon, in other words. So what you have to do is follow mandatory law. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB, who leaks this way. These are people that are pretending to be against leaking with the FBI. The FBI has recorded torture, extortion effectively to keep presidents making those things. That, and with nature of convictions against themselves. They don't even see it because you guys have been, you're also replaced with James Madison communicating. We're supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington too. So then you want to have debates, in other words, regarding what the founders intended. Get down or gather around. See, forgiveness is because to discern the breaching method, we have to discern that guilt that A through Z had and the tactile delusions that was being used remotely and is being used remotely. If honest debate paid attention to New York City, paid attention with the suburbs were designed before our founders were born for torture, extortion, and slavery of everyone, sickly distinctly too. Because again, dysfunction by how sickly, non-distinctly left out by everyone's logic. And they put those logic experts there. Psychiatry and individuals owe millions of dollars from demonstrably recorded, not even a lawyer, from Harvard Hospital, for example. And there are only 300 something streets in Hartford. They've been putting whole fake transcripts in databases. These are also people off the state corrections offices, on state judicial offices, wherein how it was is recorded, how motivated. Also, they're pretending people need to prove things in courts, and or they don't realize that things should be proved in courts wrong, and that there were also already collusions with the people at the prisons. So they're also stacking other natures of organized crime, predicate acts with facts methods, and nature's roles. Nature's like criminal insidiousness natures, wrongdoers. The FBI has roles with digital crimes with Wethersfield Police, State Police, Whiting Forensics, digital crime methods, where they're lying about their motivations and backgrounds too, putting me in fake letters. Now answer the last letter I wrote, because that's the first letter now. And get me off the fake conversations with the Wethersfield Police as a kid, now as an adult. In other words, they have all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the lawyers and the courts as collusion. I found out too through time recorded confessed demonstrated confirmed their sources had roles with child prisons too, as roles with all kinds of natures of organized crimes with the kids. Fake motivations for why they're setting up things, because they're collusion. That's how they're leaking too. Ugh. So they've been they have the police families and their kids. I don't know if the name O'Neill is involved. Foreign and domestic military, people with Afghanistan and Pakistan. I don't know if it's with the guy with the thing. Please, O'Neill, Marines are involved with this. Intercities. These are people putting fake things in campuses. People aren't even in classes with each other, and they're building out between the campuses. And that's why you're not getting good teachers, and that's why you're not having people tell things, because people communicate other than they say, and that's why you have the little rats telling on people who want to be called rats because it makes someone look like they did something wrong. They're making things up offensively. Part of the worst part of this is how it uses remotely and used remotely all sides in criminal and civil cases. And the interbranch and intelligence names and exceptions, out the state corrections office, out the state judicial branch office. Then they keep them needing to hide lie progression, need to hide what they know is the actual value of the uses of their titles, other people's names, of differences. So make sure they get on paper, please. And stop playing music with murders. And there's a Scott Pelletier. I don't know who he is, what he looks like. His name was repeated to me in the confessions. And I don't know anybody named Sanchez. That was repeated in confessions and confirmations of people next to Trinity College and CCSU, involved with the intelligence families that grew up around me that I never had anything to do with. Some of them, there were quick exceptions. They're trying to pretend other with that. With these are roles with how they bring things before cases. They already had roles with child abuser principal, forcing it by making a harassment against me charge, by pretending fake conversations, and by hiding what I caught them doing. They made all these confessions, all these different calls to me to get me to call back. Then they are also with Wethersfield Pizza. And I didn't even call the other place. I forgot the name of it. Right at the corner of Town Line Drive and Celestine Highway. But those businesses, in other words, these are the people leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense, as people from Connecticut, intercities and intercampuses. So let's get them on paper, one name and sequence. And there are people with the name Sullivan, and Odette O'Neill. I don't know what they look like. The newspapers also have been planting evidences with the F.B.I. and the like WTNH at corners of the streets, all along roads and routes, the WFSB people. So there's a Sanchez also that was repeated. I don't know who they look like, who it is, and the name Scott Pelletier. These are people with the state police in those locations like Southington, as people with all kinds of medical corruption with judges and prosecutors' families too. And the people attaching kids and their families to fake uses of drugs and alcohol, all the nature set up for everything. All kinds of people associated with Wethersfield Pizza and that state judicial branch office, also next to the state corrections offices with Covington Street and New Britain and with Zion Street and other sides of Trinity College, with the ones on my street involved with wire crimes, the Wethersfield Police forging and switching names, preventing paper since I was a kid. Also, lawyers on all sides of cases, and ones like Trantolo, on off the intelligence locations next to and at the communications locations involved, not just the news location. And their sources, Russians, all different countries, nothing personal against those countries. You guys watch Judge Napolitano's websites, pages. But no, because they all mess up. They're all messed up.